Welcome to our lovely future humans, our 5D collective, those who have a steady self-image. And so you do know neuroplasticity, it reinforces whatever you repeat, conscious or not. And the dark sides of it, unfortunately, with underdeveloped minds, which I like to call sometimes teenagers or not adolescent essence brain, or the losing adaptive child part strategy. That's for those who are new, because you're going to hear that, and that was in our short as well. But they reinforce not only harmful patterns, but they bring us the chaos that their nervous system grew up with. And so vibration, it does shape manifestation, 5D mystic, spiritual, mindful. The enlightenment, so age group is fun, so is the restorative embodiment. And so personal and spiritual growth come together, humanities, social sciences, all of it is amazing how our lovely reality is socially designed, as I've read to you before, but the definitions are always going to be embodied. And so that means we have concrete individuals and groups who serve as definers of it. The reality is also subjective. Words are also used independently from where you come from differently, and that's the part of where if you meet the dark sides of neuroplasticity, the underdeveloped mind, the losing strategy, it's a right and a wrong. They are epistemically lazy. They're pseudoscience and pseudo-intellectual. I'm just pseudoscience because I'm not a scientist. They are, in addition to that, with mannerisms that are of the not healthy. That's why their harmful patterns are not just like something random. I'm going to get that, which is where, while our spiritual bypassers, 4D mystic community, and our 3D somatic bypassers, they're all one and the same. But basically, when you meet those who are living out their non-metabolized trauma time, and then you understand what the toxic family system is like, yes, you go out there, look. So from one to the entirety. And I'm not surprised, personally, as I look out there in the world, when I see the different groups that have come together the way they have. And so, yes, it's harmful to them and harmful to each other, but because those subjective realities are actually, where's the words I'm looking for? No, I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's because, do you know what happens when you are dysregulated? If you're not a person who is informed of the nervous system, you're just going to keep attracting that which you are. And while the ones who think that they could create havoc on the entire planet, so I know some people, they look and they're like, oh, the world's doomed. I'm like, that's our actual embodied brain protecting us. So we'll look at all the things that are not working. And then when you see those who are pathological being in positions, you understand that, well, this is something that we can know why it's happening as we're in the midst of, as humans, we always go through this. I like to say, our kings and queens were 14 and 15 years of age. So I don't actually think of that as the most mature. Obviously, if they have a steady self-image and they do see long-term, and that means they lead with that which is society in mind, and that's the whole globe, not just one country, they will most definitely, with neutrality, that is, so knowing how to be aware. So I almost reacted, and then the grown-ups teach children how to be leaders, and that means by being love, not by being people who say, how should we punish them? What punishing question would you do? So whenever I get excited, I get really irritated with emotion and mature mannerisms, because my 3-year-old and my teenage self and all of me is like, wow, that's a bad grown up there. And then I'm like, oh wait, that's a dysregulated one, Maria. So when you see the toxic family dynamics playing out there in the political sphere, let me just remind you, yes, we know what's going on. So chaos wants chaos. It's actively, they get off of adrenaline and their passive low dopamine hit. They continue to live fantasies, but then they bring their rumination out there. So it's really something that with brilliant human beings, it's going to be fine is what I'm trying to get to. Today is a particular energetic day, by the way. So check out PayHip if you do enjoy doing journal prompts, mindset practices. And remember, no two trees are alike. This is yours and yours alone. Grow, stand tall amongst the stars. And so with the 5D mystic community and spiritual and mindful, we know that the dark sides of neuroplasticity is what we are going to see at play with those who have underdeveloped minds. And as Robert Sapolsky with Determined says, I haven't read it yet, but he thinks we all have no free will. I'm going to say we have the free will to choose to share knowledge, and that's why I'm going to give you an example of what happens when you meet a 3D, 4D, and you know that they're bringing a very, very not positive outlook on something that is important. Now, reminding you all, as a mystic, I get called pseudoscience, charlatan. There's those who don't believe in our experiences, but I also want to share with you, whether you call it Akash, Source, Animundi, or God. One, if you want to learn a little bit about me, I'm the co-author of the book, The Ways to God, and God is discerning and quantumous love. And so he will always encourage, comfort, support, strengthening all of his children. Akash, Source, Anima Mundi. So from the mystic perspective, there's always cosmic karmic balancing at play. So enlightenment, soul age group, expert yogis, sages, you can use all the words of the books, as nobody is appropriating of anything. It's all the same. And when someone says, oh, so I can actually not read anything, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that all of the stories point to the same. In fact, actually, it's quite hilarious. How do I say? You know, when they say we live different timelines, okay? So I guess that's the best I can do. Or I can say that because I use two sides of the brain and I assimilate information and I love, as an epistemically not only curious, disciplined, but also diligent, I continue to learn. And every time I'm reading something, I'm like, wow, this spiritual story matches this spiritual story, and that scientific explanation matches this scientific explanation, the present stuff. When I look to the past, I think, yes, Hippocrates pointed out how every wise man wants health, and that, you know, the people who are saying they can do discipline, or what was it? It was something about once discipline is presented, people don't want to do it. So every day matters of what you're going to become tomorrow. When you're having fun inside your body, you're not actually going to feel that it's hard. So epistemically lazy people, they feel hard and it's thinking hard. And so there's a whole bunch of other aspects, and they only look to yesterday's information, and they don't like abstract concepts. So when you bring it all in, they don't like that you can also say, here's some new information that contradicts the yesterday's information. And it's not that they don't like it because they're smart. They had what is called a knee-jerk reaction, and that's effective realism, and they lacked the desire to move past it and to continue being clear of mind, sound of mind, and powerful. So when I think of power, clarity, wisdom, it is all of those who are thought leaders themselves, and those are the people who come back here. Those are the people who use the journal prompts correctly and the mindset practices correctly, because you're not validating yourself and your charges, and you're not validating your likes and dislikes. So when I see the world out there, the not adolescent essence brains, yes, those are underdeveloped with the dark sides of neuroplasticity brains that could use a therapist. They will say they don't need one. They will say they don't like them. They will say that they're buffoons. They will say that it's your subjective reality and thinking and a lot more. And I'm going to give you the example of the conversation that I'm talking about. And so while I don't know everything at all, I do know how we're embodied and made, because I learned about attachment trauma education 5+ years and growing. And it gave me answers to why I get to witness a planet since I was a little kid that continues to bring chaos. And it is not a Lucifer or monster. I told that to God when I was 20. I didn't even need attachment trauma education. I did learn of 3D, 4D, sticking around for the 5D mystic timeline. I have plenty of information there. And as I settled into the sad truth of this, I said, wow, wait a minute. So that's why someone will reject true love, the twin flame thing, and masculines. Yeah, they don't test the feminine, the empowered kind, of course, the dysregulated of anything. And so I'm using Maria's words, empowered feminine, the true energy of the feminine, empowered masculine, true energy of masculine. That would be a whole person. So you have your own nervous system, you wield your brain, you own it. You're not buffoon. Manipulation and lies don't hit you like the back of their hand in a way that overwhelm your nervous system. Let me be clear. It's because you got lucky, as some would like to say, okay? Let's just say we got lucky. We get to use our human makeup, steady self-image. You don't actually look that you think hell is on earth out there. You don't think I want people to be punished in some way. that is actually fueled with dopamine hit and adrenaline, because that would be the part of why people who disregard their own effective realism and their own anger, and they don't know how to manage themselves at all, let alone control, let alone master, let alone flow, let alone be, you're not intelligent yet. You have no capacity to maintain that level of intelligence because you are reactive within an embodied brain. So lack of self-aware people are lacking accountability, they lack regulation, they don't think of it as responsibility. I know it is my responsibility to become the best version of myself because I'm capable of doing it. And that's where I get to be nudged and pushed. Thanks God. He laughed right now because yesterday he did this thing. I was like, okay, whatever. I was really frustrated with it. That's how it works sometimes, you know. But that's the part of where fathers who ask their children punishing questions and put them in a position to actually tattletale on each other or be like mean to each other. Yeah, I'm disgusted, and I completely am still disgusted by all of it. So I understand it. My left brain and my right understand that the dark sides of neuroplasticity and underdeveloped minds reinforce harmful patterns, and they bring us their chaos. So they bring not only their frequency, like someone getting off of my panic attacks. That's disgusting. And that's the part of where when someone wants to tell me no one has to heal, I say, you're correct. No one has to do anything, but I'm going to talk about epistemically curious, disciplined, and diligent leaders. Those are the real kind. As for the fear-based leaders, they continue to create cowards and followers who put on pedestals men, women, and a bunch of other books and things that don't need a pedestal. You can just put them on the ground. We're all basic. If they're expanding and they know self-regulation, we're going to have a good time. If, on the other hand, they're of the other group who completely becomes blinded by their own ego, we're going to know who they are and how they're going to work. Because like Diego's family from Ice Age, and like any toxic family dynamic and any kind of low frequency, like attracts like. And so the 3D, 4D are going to continue to look out there, and as they do best, give us their angle and their charge. I'm trying to say everything's going to work out because our human species is on this lovely road. So from the human perspective, as Neil deGrasse says, science is not about belief, it's objective truth. So unless you're part of the flat earthers, right? Okay, so I'm the pseudoscience lady because I'm told that, and I'm okay with that because I know who scientists are. But when someone wants to give me, so you don't believe in evil as a mystic spiritual one, I say, yeah, there's no evil. This word means something from the forensic criminologist scale, and the grandiose, charming ones are only grandiose and charming to blind people. To those of us who are very clear on what a grandiosity, fake charming person is, it's a individual who needs help, and that's basically twofold. And when you see that there's so many that actually put on the pedestal a very pathological, completely, it's not about gender, it's like, wow, okay, so that's how many fear-based followers we have, and they were all treated the same chaotic, dysfunctional, dysregulated way, which, as Bessel van der Kolk points out, you can't tell a person they're dysregulating because they don't know the difference between self-regulation or not. That's where the 3D, 4D brothers and sisters of ours, that's what I call them, the emotionally immature ones, they're somatic bypassers, and they are also spiritual bypassers. And they look at the ones who have the capacity to self-regulate, and therefore right here you see what you see this since as a kid, and it's you fake it, you feel, and you're just faking it, and I'm just gonna let you know it's amazing to regulate intensity. And so when you are able to be aware of your charges, you don't throw them at people. Okay, so when on the other hand I get to look out there in the world and see the big picture, I know that the non-metabolized trauma time of the 0-8-year-olds are being played out, that they only use ancient books, they don't like present or future books, and the conversation I'm going to give you is going to be a perfect example of that. And we'll continue our conversations, but on this day we're just going to be, I'm short on time, so we're going to have to keep it short, and I'm going to have to wrap it up. But number one, here's a subreddit question that I answered. I'll probably make a short of it too, just so that people who prefer shorts can hear it. But the question was, where have you met other emotionally mature, intelligent people? And I said, I've met them from family to core friendships to college mates, work colleagues, and peers. spiritual communities and personal growth groups with professionals and people doing the emotional regulation and resilience work also gave and continue to give me the opportunity. I said in all settings, I've also found spiritual somatic bypassers, those who lead with emotionally immature patterns and charges, affective realism and projections, narratives, and epistemic laziness. Instead of doing the work, they create validation loops for each other, and in these instances, I know what to expect, and I leave it alone. No one gets outgrown from, just adapted to, and organically all works out. Now, some people will say, but it is up to us to point out the bad manners and the pathological, right? I know that end of the coin. Holding accountable. Okay, so it begins with you holding yourself accountable and not allowing yourself to justify your charges. As one, you get dumber by the minute, like I do too. I'm completely in the same boat as everybody else. The difference is I'm aware of it, and then what motivates me to work beyond my irritation. I'm here not just for Maria, to share with you what it's like to be living intentionally, 5D mystic here, being yourself, nervous system sovereignty, all the words throughout all the years that we've used, that I've used and that the regulars have. I'm here to also let you be inspired, but not because I motivate you. I can't. It's your neuroception. And so when I'm around immature people, I am irritated always. And when these energy shifts come about, I continuously perceive their complete chaos. It doesn't make my nervous system overwhelmed with chaos. It simply is right in the gut where I'm like, ugh, and then I remind myself that I almost reacted, but I have the choice of sovereignty, regulation, and integrity. And then to remind my 3-year-old, hey, why are we making a big deal? Hold on a minute. What's going on here? And as you breathe through yourself and you continuously do that, the effect of reality subsides and you begin to have a nice conversation, and then you begin to remember you're making it into a big deal because our nervous system protects us from that which is going to be dangerous. And obviously anybody who's dysregulated is not a safe co-regulating partner. And so you don't want to be around them. And so you don't like the energy of 3D40. And then when you look at what they're doing to the children, you see that they're creating more fear-based. And then we think, but it's okay, we'll be able to figure it out because we're all angels and God made us perfect. And the ones who are emotionally intelligent will continue to come together and they will continue to make this planet a safe space. And those who think we can't because it's not possible, they can go and continue attracting each other and doing what they do best, which is being blind and deaf. Not mute, but they're blind and deaf. And I'm going to look for epistemic laziness. I can define that one for you for a minute. So affective realism is when your internal emotions, moods, bodily sensations affect the affect. They shape how you perceive the external world, causing you to treat your feelings as objective facts. Wait, well, it is right. It feels right. You're all feels, dude. I'm all feels. And so by being so comfortable, by the way, with my community and with everything that we've been discussing, I have the honor to tell you this is my micro habit. I'm doing it as we speak. Obviously, God likes to help that along. So I had another episode I was going to share with you all, but I got nudged that I could do better. And he's right, of course, but it would have been nice to share it. I'll save it for our paid either Substack subscribers or our paid Spotify podcast subscribers. If you're curious, you'll have to make that request though eventually. Oh, but yeah, it was a good one. And I'm going to tell you the story in a minute. Let me just find, where are you? I have so many different notes. It's not even funny. Okay, 1 second. But I want to define for you all epistemic laziness with a couple of words that are going to be of use so you can understand. Lacking epistemic curiosity, so being epistemically lazy, whether they are in leadership positions or not, they will be obvious to those of you who are emotionally intelligent once I read it. It means having a low intrinsic drive to seek new knowledge, explore ideas, or resolve gaps in understanding. It represents a lack of desire to learn for the sake of learning, often leading to disinterest in abstract concepts, limited intellectual exploration, and a preference for existing knowledge over new information. Okay, the implications of lacking epistemic curiosity: low motivation for learning, cognitive closure, lack of intellectual humility, reduced intellectual risk-taking. And I will read a little bit on this. This was AI gave me an answer. So low motivation for learning: individuals show little interest in acquiring knowledge that does not offer immediate practical rewards. People who get off of passive dopamine, so scrolling, watching, that's the more you integrate that habit, neuroplasticity, it works both sides of a coin. So if you're allowing yourself to continue with your maladaptive patterns and your dysregulation, which is why therapists are important, because they bring a person to heal completely, that's the transformation. Once you're done with that, you're not going to call secure attachment study image boring. The only ones who use the word boring for anything that is in the enlightenment, blissed out soul age group of everything and beyond are the same ones who don't experience it because they never regained full access to their emotional body because they disregard completing an entire, however long it takes to get themselves all the way back to their zero. So all their child parts, okay? And actually it's a sad story because never get to meet them. You're always going to just meet their half fake self. And that's like my facade friend. But you can't make them. That's the other part. No two trees are alike. This is yours and yours alone. Grow, stand tall amongst the stars. Today we have some energy. So here's where free will comes into the mix. Here's where God never gives you more than what you can handle. Here's where when someone wants to still use the word evil, Lucifer, or there's dark forces or benevolent forces, you're objectifying a bunch of feelings that people have. And this is not to diminish our stories or experiences, but here's when I first found out about our timeline of what 3D 4D would be, and that means that they would stay in what they would stay. I remember the person who introduced it to me is a spiritual bypasser. In fact, they thought we skipped the 4D, and as they're telling me this, I'm like, yeah, no, we didn't skip it, you're in it. When I was broken free from the bandwidth, if you will, from the mystic explanation of that moment, it was thanks to, yes, we all have knowledge of the word. Come on, say with me. Who do we get to meet? Our oversoul, so twin flame or twin flames. Okay, so when you get lost in a story, though, that's the point of you're objectifying an experience instead of living the human, grow, become whole. So there's a man out there who said, if you don't heal your trauma, you won't manifest. We're going to have some episodes where I'm going to talk to you about, no, people will manifest. But energy does care like God, meaning that the consciousness does care about good and bad. There's a man who did a video where he's like, vibration, that's all you are. It's math, it's physics. And they're talking about, I'm going to give you a manifestation class and da-da-da. So on both equations, whether you want to tell me that if you don't heal trauma, you don't manifest, or whether you want to tell me that you're only vibration, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, it's how you vibe, I'm going to bring to you, I've seen cosmic karmic balancing. What you give will come back and bite you in the butthole. But if you are the dark sides of neuroplasticity with the not adolescent essence, so you're an immature, maladaptive patterns of behavior, inner critic, outer critic, you're dysregulated, you're dysfunctional, you have patterns from the toxic family system. I'm just going to bring in that for now. I'm going to see pathologies on wheelhouse as they come together and isolate themselves in their little tribes with their kings and queens of therefore rigidity. Yeah, it ain't going to be looking any kind of good. You're going to notice the people who are epistemically curious, wow, okay, we have pathologies and people who are essentially not bringing us into respecting each other by telling us that the tradition that they're just actually reactive. And this epistemic, this effective realism with this epistemic laziness, it's a combination. Neil deGrasse says it best. Wait, let me see if I can find the notes that I had, because he is the one, actually, I think it's right in front of me. Yeah. So besides the reality being socially defined and us having embodied individuals that will continue to bring forth that, they are not like the flat earthers connected to, so the farther you are, here we go. The less connected you are to what is objectively true, the less likely you are able to make decisions. The decisions that will benefit you, your life, humanity, family, okay, civilization itself. And while lovely Neil deGrasse, I gave you the gist of it, talks to you about how a proper skeptic will change their mind, how if you learn how to effectively speak the truth, you're forgetting something, Neil. People aren't an object. They're subjective, and their subjective reality does count. And as Terry Real points out, that's why feelings do matter. So once you understand how pathologies work, how the dark sides of neuroplasticity work, how a person who's unhealed works, they bring to you their chaos. They like to test. It's not even funny. It's not testing. This is the whole thing. So the twin flame or twin flames, however many you got, 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter. You're not going to be tested. You're going to be irritated. The person who has the stability inside of themselves, steadiness, feels at ease with it. As Stephen Porges pointed out, the people who don't have this secure attachment, they don't feel at ease with stillness inside, because they're waiting for the next shoe to drop, which is what I'm trying to present to you. It's sickening and saddening at the same time. When I look out into the globe, all I know is we have people who don't know how to self-regulate. It's not a genius way. So I'm going to bring to you a story in a minute. As when you meet effective realism and epistemic laziness, it's like, okay, from individual to out there. I mean, all I need to do is spot a couple of them, and I've done that throughout the years. Cognitive closure. They may prefer simple black and white answers and resist the uncertainty or mental effort involved in deep thinking. Yet they will say that I'm stupid because I'm the pseudoscience lady. This is when people interact with me on regular conversations, which I actually do my best not to get involved in at all, because it's really boring for me to have to put up with stereotypes, generalizations, the word evil, the word Lucifer, the word monster, the word whatever it is they want to bring in. At the moment in which they're looking at the world in this good and bad thing in a way that is completely obvious to me that it's a child's game, because you haven't matured your entire emotional plane yet you want to talk to me about thinking, but then you don't read, and you don't read new stuff, and you will reject new stuff versus young. And you're going to bring to me something that is, oh, Maria, but your opinion is subjective. And it's like, no, I have objective facts really from scientists that are building it, but I'm not even going to go there, because the minute you object to data that I'm learning from experts and the experts themselves, and you say you're bigger than them, well, I mean, I got a child in the forefront of me. It doesn't matter how old you are. I have to leave it alone. And so here's where I get passionate in this way, because that's when I'm meeting the immature ones that I adapt to as I responded to the person who interacted with my response. She was like, oh, that's a great perspective. Because I was like, you don't outgrow people, you just adapt. So I've disengaged from talking about intellectually interesting and actually explorative conversations of where our human species is headed, because it's boring to talk to people who get defensive. It's boring to talk to stupid people that are also small-minded, and they're also emotionally charged. And then they don't know when someone is not emotionally charged, because I know what's going on, but also in the case of a person who's in oneness with all that is, we already know what's going to happen. I have had not only, again, the consistent, very blessed journey, thank you, Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, all the lovely angels. Then as I get into mysticism, spirituality, and all this, I'm like, wow, we're all a big ball of energy. Thanks, Akash, Source, Animamundi. And then knowing I'm rejected by a bunch of different ignorant people who I really don't give a shit about being rejected, because they can use the word evil. It means nothing to me except for Michael Stone's forensic criminologist scale. When I look out in the world, I know who gets manipulated and lied to. It's all the ones who don't want to go get themselves healed. I can't do anything about it. They still want to think they know more than I do. I'm not going to tell them they don't, because it's not a winning argument. When you allow yourself to not be objective, do you read books of people that talk to you about how an embodied brain is? And if you do, to the bejesus of you, and then you notice you're dysregulated, which, as Bessel van der Kolk points out, you can't. And I've seen the people who reject all of the information, they're the ones who are dysregulated. And they're the ones who support asking punishing questions to children and continuing to treat children with fear-based mannerisms, because they got treated like that. And they're still waiting for the next shoe to drop. And they're going to continue testing that which is neutral, because they can't handle, because they are used to passive dopamine hits, adrenaline, and very annoying, irritating mannerisms. It's annoying and irritating. And actively, it just is like, you know what, let's breathe, get steadied again. Okay, lack of intellectual humility. So at least objective people, they are going to be, you know what, I'm not interested in learning material. Thanks so much for share whatever. But getting defensive and then not noticing if you don't read, if you don't read. A lower motivation to explore might accompany a lower desire to identify gaps in one's own knowledge. Reduced intellectual risk-taking, a lack of desire to explore, which can make individuals less likely to challenge their own beliefs. And with that, there's also causes and characteristics, cognitive overload or fatigue. So some people get tired when they're reading and thinking. Limited interest in novelty. So that's where people are actually preferring routine and familiar information over the discomfort of confusion or complexity. When you are emotionally mature and intelligent, you don't find reading or doing any thinking hard. So that's where everybody is different. Let's remember that. But if you're not going to become a person who's knowledgeable, then at the very bare minimum, if you're responsible, you would allow yourself to disengage from talking about people in certain ways. The spiritual bypasser and somatic bypasser community don't do that. And then they model the very same epistemic laziness and emotional immature mannerisms to each other. And they validate it. And so while some will want to point at what's going on out there in the bigger world, I'm like, yeah, from the big world to the small societies to the people who aren't noticing themselves when they're trying to talk about anything. And I've been talking about things since I was a kid, trying to say, why are we making, like, what's all the charges about? But at the same time, I get charged myself. So we all can do it. It's up to those who are neuroplastically working with themselves. Now I just used the word the wrong way, but you get my drift, right? So neuroplasticity, the ones who want to continue vibing in their dysregulation are ignoring that they bring chaos and that their energy is unnecessary and that it's uninteresting. And that's actually why it's nice to have emotionally intelligent and mature people. Welcome aboard 5D Collective. When we're around the ones who are 3D, 4D, they are consistently overwhelmed by the dark forces of evil and the benevolent forces of this and that, and that's because they don't actually expand their window of tolerance to anything. They allow themselves to give their bad habits that which is fuel, and they continue just to do that. While we get to be the ones who decide. So do you do what you do to leave something behind that will show children how to self-regulate and how our world will be in harmony, and our species doesn't go backwards, it goes forward. Lack of information gap trigger. So they're not experiencing an interest in learning new things. And this, the way that they are describing it, I will say that curiosity is something that those who enjoy learning will always be driven by. But those who are not, and let's say that they just have an objective where they are trying to prove themselves, so modulate embodiment. That's where we have our 3D, 4D, this way. Martyrs, blamers, superiors, codependent. And so they're going to be determined with that pattern, and if they choose to maintain it, they're going to continue with their rigidity to maintain it. And so they don't own the brain, although they might think they do. And you're going to notice if they are still controlling themselves, then they haven't mastered themselves. And the story that I was going to share the other day is I'm talking to a very good friend of mine. We're talking about therapists. They have had a bad experience with therapists. They had a God complex one, a narcissist one, and they have a bunch of other people who also have bad experiences with therapists. So as I mentioned, some people need 7 to 10 years to heal. They immediately like, no, they don't. That's way too much. That's just a therapist taking the money of the person, blah, 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 blah. And it wasn't that I was upset at how they were talking to me about it, but this isn't the first time that they begin talking as if a therapist is not needed and that mystic spiritual is better than a therapist, or doing it one way without the support. And they even mentioned AI. And I'm like, AI is not a human. You don't learn how to co-regulate because you don't have another nervous system. You are not going to actually heal those charges because you have not a somatic empath. So you're just talking with yourself, and a computer, it's fine, it can intellectually work with you, yes, but you're not going to actually dissolve and the nervous system. So it's human made, that which is our lovely species, and nature is part of us too, meaning animal kingdom, but we actually are the ones who help each other heal. So relational healing. However, some who think there's not an entire keep of therapists to support you and that you can do it all by yourself with the community, That's being irresponsible. So this is the part of where you can't make someone understand that healing is for themselves. And so when you have what we have out there in the world, does anybody know what 3-year-olds, the left, I want to do diet, I want to do diet. We're doing the diet. That's how my brain, 3 days prior to even beginning a diet, which means the diet's going to tell me exactly how my 24 hours are going to go. That's the control part. This, the right, the book, I don't have it with me, but the left is the idiotic child. It's not an idiotic child. It's a delusional idiot, and then it's a fascinated child. So let's not talk to ourselves like little piece of shit. That's not good. And that means that also there wasn't a good environment. And so you talk with neutrality. You don't do the bad. You don't do the good. You do okay. Things happen in life. And so the right is not an indulgent parent, because that would mean you're not a grown-up. Also not a judgmental asshole, although we might all fall within that. But you learning how not to be that is because you remember you never walked one day in the shoes of anybody else. And so circumstances, this from me to you, in the night they marry laughing and handsome and mirror an invasion of reflection of trust. And when you do have the capacity to know how you didn't walk one day in the feet of anyone, the same you will hope for others to do with you. So if someone was raised in chaos and they continue to test terrain in a way, but they are actually healed and they want wholeness, they will disengage from those patterns of behavior, but that will be thanks to help from a specialist that will have given them the capacity to know all of the child parts, all of their maladaptive patterns. People who underestimate the therapists and the entire good community, they're the ones who I continue to see flocking to each other's cauldrons. If someone does do the therapy and all of that, then they say, I'm doing it, I want to live now. That's a person who's not going to become a part of groupies who are still charged and not modeling embodied self-leadership. So as long as we have fear-based leadership role models, we're going to have dysregulated human beings bringing their dark sides of neuroplasticity, their survivorship bias. They're going to create more followers because these are all weak people, by the way. Their nervous system is not strong. They didn't expand their window tolerance. They're weakening it by validating their manners, by talking a story for you, and by then grouping based on their own experiences, and that involves effective realism. So this human being who's now all telling me 7-10 years, and I'm like knowing that they have this pattern to say, therapists are bad, let's do it by ourselves. And now with AI, I'm like, okay, I need to get my something of the information I've learned to this human being, because one person makes a difference in an entire group of people. And so by self-regulating, because I'm interested, I'm engaged, I care, and not because I'm right about all of topics, no, because I know why 7 to 10 years. Dissociative identity disorder, because I've taken a number of courses, not only with Dr. Daniel Siegel, but also Bethany Brand, Ruth Lanius. And this man actively is like, this is just your perspective. I said, no, I learned from experts. It's been more than 5 years, but your experts don't know anything. My experts, they're not mine. They're researchers and therapists. They have clients. They kept on giving me objection for expertise, which is very unfortunate. When you see people not supporting academia, remind yourself, yes, academia and the system needs to be worked with, but that's where we learn, and those systems are in place for a reason. So we improve systems, and that's the part of where grounded in reality people improve systems. You don't become a flat earther, and you don't become a spiritual bypasser who's like, we need to prove spirituality, and yes, there's an evil, and yes, there's a good. It's okay, let's start over. No, it's not start over, but 3D, 4D, it's too much. It's too much apparently for their brains to handle. That's a sad way to put it, because see, to me, that's not the case. They have epistemically lazy leaders they're following because their bell, which is their gut, which is unhealed, their nervous system, it continuously predicts in the way that their nervous system was raised. And so they were raised with chaos. They continue to be attracted to it. But this is the part of where let's not make it a blanket statement. Since the lovely world is made of emotionally intelligent people, guess who will thrive? And guess who will maintain a level of calm and steadiness and bring forth the different growing systems, sustainability. Okay, so we all will notice the small energy of those who are dysregulated, They will always be annoying as long as they're around, but the fear-based leaders are fear-based for a reason. So to be mean is not nice to those who didn't get what they deserved to get when they were first birthed. And so this is where also our nervous system did nothing wrong. It has its mechanisms because it serves us with dark matter, dark energy, which is where when someone thinks that good and bad doesn't make a difference, yes, it does. And we'll talk about that in another episode, because your vibration does matter. And also, though, what you're bringing into the planet does matter. And really, it's amazing how people don't realize when they're disconnected from all that is, that when you say we are here to be love, those who think we're not, it's because they don't know what love is. So again, from your nervous system sovereignty, love is your social engagement, your ventral energy. As you anchor it in, it's an integrated brain, and that means you know how to differentiate. So as I'm engaging with my friend in my Mui sphere, because that's what Dr. Daniel Siegel calls it, or my biosphere as Terry Real would call it, I'm self-regulating Maria. I have not the intent to prove I'm right. I have an emotional awareness that my friend has a past with a God complex therapist that cheated him out of money, made him worse than before, and then he has a bunch of other friends that have the same experience. And then I have shamans who say, don't go to therapy, come to me. So I have a number of very important things going in my mind, and I need to get through to my friend, and the only thing I can know is how to maintain that. Thank you, Terry Real. Subjective reality, understanding it comes from a past, it has effective realism, it has everything that means something to them, and that I'm just wanting to try to wiggle in why the 7 to 10 years, why some people, not all people have to, but some people, and that there's good therapists, and there's good experts, and there's good, and you know, so it was like lasted a whole hour, and they're all happy. Thanks for the passionate conversation, you know, and by the end of this conversation, I'm able to completely get through a little bit. And then they end, though, telling me about how they like AI and AI helps them better. And I can't do anything except for continue to be my friend's friend, continue to understand where they're coming from. And then, oh, by the way, yes, some people, they just stick to the martyr superior, blamer, victims, and codependents. So they're dysregulated mannerisms. That's their teenage version. So there's your 3D, 4D. And so that's where you adapt. But to try to wiggle in some information is not because I'm right. It's because it's detrimental that my friend continuously voices out, people don't need therapy, the therapist wants money from you, let's do it our way alone. And so it's because of that that I insisted to try to get him to understand why I said 7 to 10 years and how he doesn't have memory barriers. He doesn't have dissociative identity disorder. He doesn't have a dysregulated nervous system to the point of where he could become a threat to himself or to others. And then furthermore, I actually hear of so many people who don't know about all these things. And they want to tell me, you don't believe in evil? How could you? Yeah, because there isn't any. There's only a bunch of pathological, dysregulated human beings who had a sad story of an upbringing. And if you want to go down the path of storytelling, keep doing that. I know God made us perfect, and actually science proves it. And the sad thing is, if we had more epistemically curious, disciplined, and diligent, all human beings, science and spirituality, so they would all work with that which is called, wow, we have so much amazing information that shares how self-agency works. Yeah, the world would be already a lot forward. Instead, what do we got? We got 3D, 4D groupies going on out there. Remember women, don't think it. And this, I'm not even going to bother with that one. So I can't do anything about those who don't want to become their own tree of life. But for those of you who are your own tree of life, what we can do is know why those who act with severity, who think they know everything, like my friend included, and anybody else who is objecting to that which is good therapy for people to get healed, it's a simple equation. I just know that there's bad ones, yes, like there's bad spiritual ones, meaning the ones who will take your money and run with it. And that's all types of professionals. If you meet an emotionally intelligent person, you're going to meet a mentally intelligent one, and then you're going to meet basically a human being, which is what you're made of. And that's why the path, the wheel of fortune, anybody know it? Free will, you do have it. God gives it to you. Spirit gives it to you. But if you don't want to look at it that way, I can say dark matter, dark energy, and the forces of energetic frequency can give it to you. And while this man who I came across says you can manifest good or bad, universe don't care, no, consciousness expands, and that means it becomes more intelligent, more loving, not less. And when you do bring something that is on a low frequency, the reality is, and I'll try and keep it grounded on earth, self-loathing, gut wrench, torn apart, that don't sound pretty. So when you, with the wisdom from the heart, words of wisdom, clarity, everyone has an embodied brain. Either you know how to self-regulate and you own it, and therefore you move into curiosity, check, that's your capacity. Or if you don't, you got a bunch of different other options. But what I'm going to say is epistemically lazy, emotionally immature people live a very small-minded world, and then they have a very small energy, and they get tired because they don't know how to expand their personality or to actually continuously be fueled by that inner fire because they're not using eustress. And so they're not expanding their window of welcome or tolerance. And their emotional body grows weak because you supporting your bad habits doesn't make you a lover. It makes you stagnate. Everyday habits matter. And so lovers, you choose your highest potential by becoming a person who can bring the best out of everyone. But if they don't want their best, like my friend, but their best is basically being emotionally immature and their 0 to 8-year-old maladaptive patterns of behavior, you reiterate your healthy boundaries, you're going to build secure connections no matter what. And as for the bigger picture world, that's the same goes. So our species advances because we are always moving towards more of good, because good is smart, because good is love. And we don't need punishing questions. Those who are survivor bias, they have chaos, dysregulation. They were treated like that. They think those manners work because they only know that, and they look at the world in that very strict, rigid way, and they don't realize that our nervous system serves us to keep us alerted for physical, active dark matter, dark energy. In fact, there are those who do like to use the word virtual reality, which makes me laugh because it means you're still distancing yourself from the fact that you don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. Human secondary consciousness, not a dilemma from the integrated brain, the prefrontal cortex. It's only a dilemma for those who feel overwhelmed by the darkness of not knowing. So the right sits with darkness, the left sits with words, and when they sit together, it's like, wow, we got an infinite universe out there, amazing, between science and spirituality. So those, when the 4D talks about the benevolent and dark forces, just so we close on out, that's because they have a weak nervous system. Excuse me. I should rephrase that. They have a window of tolerance that they're weakening by validating the stories, by having a good team and a bad team. But some people are only motivated by the passive dopamine hit, by their adrenaline, and by the fact that they need roller coasters. It's a very boring energy. We get very bored very quickly because they also get very dumb very quickly. And I'm 46 and it doesn't change. And once they get older and you see them as old human beings who are not adolescent essence, that not mature brain, yes, that's just like watching your teenage years and then saying, okay, well, all you need is love. Boom, boom. Yeah, human is not a resource. A human being is a tremendous possibility. With the right nurturing, they will blossom into someone remarkable. Thank you, Sadhguru. And so what you do want to remember is we're all made in different ways, meaning we all have a different story. Subjective reality. If you have an emotionally mature person, they will be pleasant. You'll have a good time. You're going to expand. If they're immature, you're going to potentially have some stuff go on, but it's okay because we ask ourselves, here's a journal prompt I'll leave you with. How has my ability to create steadiness from uncertainty helped me to stay true to myself, to help others, and to expand humanity? Or what do I close my mind off from? Where does rigidity come up? What do I deny as existing? What can I accept as part of this world that I don't like? And those are important so that you can create neutrality, expand from it, remind yourself we all live the world of ours in a way, have trust that we always come together, our systems always get improved, and that's because we're choosing to be a part of those systems that we improve. And that we do understand that those who come with chaos will continue bringing their dark sides of neuroplasticity and their chaos. The thing is, again, distress doesn't do their body any favors. And so their trauma charges, their unresolved ways, but once they're in a wheelhouse, they're going to be easy to read. They got 5 hands. And if you're smart enough, you know how not only to adapt, but how to make the best of a situation and to try to support a situation in the best way possible, not for right or wrong. No one gives a shit about that word in the act of caring about what you're bringing in. You're caring to leave lovers behind, leaders, not those who are manipulable like the back of their hand, and they're manipulable because they don't have the capacity to have a steady self-image that they differentiate. Then they notice that was not mine, this is not mine, and I'm talking about the nervous system. It's happened to me more than once. And when you have your mui and you care about bringing that harmony, you continuously enjoy doing it. And then, like I said, it's a conversation of not the good and bad in a way of evil forces, good forces. It's about, if you have an embodied brain that is integrated, you're going to experience all of channeling and downloading with expansion. If 3D, 4D doesn't get out of that, which is their somatic spiritual bypassing, I know what they feel because I've met them. And anytime they're reading to me energy, I'm like, oh, wow, you're like really overwhelmed by this. Okay, it's not how I'm perceiving any of this. And I see similar things. So don't think that we get different messages. Because again, this is the part of, I'm continuing on. So I'm going to go as I have to go. But what happens when I increase flexibility as I soften control, resistance, emotional charges, or fill in the blank? And the last one, how does my irritation, judgment block me from being of service and or support to others, society, human evolution, and to inspire human potential? And so these are some of the ones that I use. They're not the ones that are in the lovely journal prompts and mindset practices on PayHip. Maybe one of them, I don't remember, but you can check it out, and we'll be back with more. Let any of your lovely mystic, spiritual, mindful friends that are emotion mature join us here on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, everywhere and anywhere, and to check out PayHip. Have a good one.